This is a tank that doesn't get a huge amount of love. This is the German Tier 7 heavy tank, the Tiger P, also known as VK4501P, a vehicle that, well, in another universe is the Tiger 1 that everyone knows and loves, but in our world it is just, it's a funny bit of history, really. The tank that Ferdinand Porsche would have made the Tiger, if that makes any sense. Ferdinand Porsche, obviously, the man who created the Porsche road car company. They don't build tanks anymore today, they build sports cars and supercars and the like. But once upon a time they made these. A whole bunch of them, but only one of them actually served looking like this. I can't remember which hull number it was, 150003 I think, served as a command tank, didn't do so for very long. I believe it was knocked out sometime in June or July of 1944, about a month or two after it had gone into service. What's going on? Thank you for lagging, game. So, this tank in World of Tanks has a bit of a storied history. Once upon a time, it used to be a fairly uncommon tank. It kind of still is, but it was well armoured. And so, if it would often be faced with vehicles that, well, players rather, would be faced with this and not know where to shoot it. That's not the case anymore. The armour has not aged well. The turret isn't as impenetrable as it used to be. And the frontal hull is littered in weak spots. Namely, of course, the lower glacis plate and these cheeks here. Only count as about 115mm of armour from the front. 80 flat on. It's why you don't really see these things side-scraping a lot. That's a massive weak spot. I tend to sort of stick my nose out to the side, kind of like this. Don't know if it works that well. But at least there's a chance that the people shooting at me will hit my stronger upper plates rather than the thinner lower plate. If I'm trying to hide these cheek plates anyway. Then this tank has always been overshadowed by its more famous counterpart, the Tiger 1, even before the Tiger 1 got its buff. I've got the Tiger 1 right here, actually. So once upon a time, these two tanks did the exact same amount of damage. I mean, the gun was exactly the same. 203mm of average penetration, 240 alpha damage. But this tank always had a very poor aim time, 2.9 seconds base, and its reload time was also pretty poor as standard. I don't know if that's been changed since then. In fact, almost certainly it has been. It still has that poor 2.9 second aim time. Accuracy's okay at 0.34. And the loading time, once upon a time, it was something like 9 seconds. I remember it was 8.25. And when it was that with vents or gunrama, I don't remember with what equipment they have had back in 2015, but it has been buffed to 7.7 second reload time, which is decent. It could be worse. With my build, it's doing that 240 damage every 6.47 seconds, whereas the Tiger 1, well, it's doing 280 every 6.55. Slightly slower. It's basically imperceptibly slower reload time, and yet it's just better still. So Tiger 1 has always received the I don't really know what you would call it. Tiger P has received the short end of the stick. Tiger 1 has always been the baby, even though its armor isn't great. Turret armor is actually quite nice though. So the Tiger P has often been seen as a bit of a bugbear in the tech tree, especially because it is quite sluggish. It may have 670 horsepower without the turbocharger, but the Tiger 1 gets 700, and it's a bit faster in a straight line. It does 40 to the Tiger P's 35, and because it's got better power to weight, 12.06 to 10.84, Tiger 1 goes up a hill faster. So basically, if you're on the other side of a map and the enemy starts capping, you're more likely to decap in the Tiger 1 than you are in the Tiger P. You can basically just forget it if you're in the Tiger P. This is not a particularly popular tank. It clearly isn't very played very well because it's actually kind of relatively easy to ace this vehicle. I've aced this tank twice now, and both times the experience I received was at least 1,500. So I think that's probably a bit more than what you need. But I've had a few decent games in this tank, and you know what? Sure, it's got its issues, but I love it. Well, some of you may remember that epic game I had back in 2015. I'll show the results screen of that now. But yeah, that game. It's what made me fall in love with this tank. I mean, I was already gonna keep it. I mean, it's one of the Girls and Panzer tanks. I made it my mission to collect all the Girls and Panzer tanks. And this is Leopoldine. So even if Girls and Panzer didn't exist, I probably would keep this anyway after that epic game where I got my one and only Paul's medal. Where things just went so right. I realised that I got really lucky in that game. But still. When things go right in this tank, they go really right. If you're facing an enemy who is inexperienced and they don't know where to shoot you, you are going to have a very good time in this vehicle. Because its armour is stronger than the Tiger's. Frontal plate is 200mm. Has 80mm on the side and rear. So even if people don't know that this is a weak spot, even if they don't know this is a weak spot, even if they don't know this is a weak spot, if you can side scrape on this tank, it's going to be as effective as the Tiger 1, but generally speaking, your frontal hull armor is going to be enough to withstand pretty much everything that a lower tier tank can really throw at you. For example, the 31P, fairly typical tier 6 tank, 145mm of penetration on its short 88mm gun. And if you're using the long 75, in fact you can't use the long 75 anymore. What? Oh no, you can. Sorry, I'm just blind. 150 pen, yeah, that's not great for tier 6 heavy. And even if we pick up our something like a OI, if I can find my OI, where is that? Over here, which has a very high penetration gun for its tier, it's still only 175mm of penetration. So yeah, that's not great. Especially because, yeah, if you're facing this head-on, more than likely you're not going to go through. You can see the penetration values. So 200mm flat. If the OI gets a good penetration, well, then yeah, it can go through, but it's not likely. 219 at maximum. And then you've got things like the Churchill. 185mm maximum. It cannot penetrate the front of a Tiger P. TOG, 171. 214, slightly less than the OI. ARL-44 is a dangerous vehicle. It can use the 90mm DCA-45, which can go through that armor reasonably easily. And then, if you're not using that gun, you've got this gun. Same penetration on its standard rounds, though many people tend to use the gold rounds on this tank when using the 105 because overpowered. Yeah, there's a few vehicles at tier 7 and tier 6 that the Tiger P is still a formidable adversary for. It's just when it's not top tier, when it's bottom tier or middle tier, that it will struggle. All that being said, I do like this tank. Now, it does require that different playstyle. I feel that even though most people don't really use enhanced gun laying drive anymore, I think it's still kind of necessary for this vehicle in order to try and get some damage done. 0.32 accuracy that you get with that isn't bad, but just comparing it to the Tiger 1, 2.33 without the enhanced gun laying drive, it's just... That's why I can afford to use improved aiming instead. Tiger P just has to use the gun laying drive in order to get the gun to actually aim a bit quicker. Because using 2.9 seconds base, that's not gonna work at all. So yeah, some people may advise that you take the improved aiming. I would advise gun laying drive, but who what do I know? I'm just an average player. You may notice that I've marked this tank, 1 mark. It's one of a few tanks that I've managed to mark now. And of course I've aced it twice, and I've got some better than average stats in it. So I do know what I'm doing in this thing. I've got some reasonably good games. It's just that it prefers to be top tier, you know, as most tanks do. If it's top tier, it is absolute king. But if everything, it does struggle a bit more when you're facing higher tier opponents, and sometimes even same tier opponents. So yeah, Tiger P. Let's have a couple of games where this tank shined for me. Where the game where I marked it, and then the game where I got my second ace tanker and second top gunner as well. Because if we actually take a look at my statistics in this tank, I've played 64 battles in it. I have managed 2 top guns, one of which was my Pools Medal game, as we can see, the Pools Medal and the Deadline Glades from that game, which, if you don't remember, was the Jingles battle, 5 high calibers, 3 steel walls, a defender and an invader. That's also from the funny game. I've got a kamikaze at some point. I don't remember when I got that. Wasn't recent, that's for sure. I've also got a Spartan in it as well. And yeah, average damage is going to be higher than 65% at the minute. It's 69.93%. Relatively easy to mark this tank. Not many people playing it, so it's not doing a huge amount of damage. Yeah, it's not doing terribly badly. Average XP per battle. Just noticed that. 703, I'm not doing too badly in it. Same with the Tortoise. Tortoise is great, but yeah. Despite that, let's get into those games I was talking about. So, here is the first of those games. This is the battle in which I achieved my first mark of excellence in the Tiger P. Now, you can see that there is the mark of excellence counter in the bottom corner. It says 69.04 at the minute. That's wrong. That's currently counting, you know, where the tank is on the live server. It's not counting where the tank was at the time of this battle, which was about 64.3%. Really wasn't that far from the 65% required for the 1 mark. Like a good heavy tank, I'm heading towards the town here on the Outpost map. It's really where you would find most heavy tanks going. If a heavy tank goes south on this map, then it's gone. It's doing things really kind of wrong. And I've recently discovered, well, I say discovered, learned about the hull down spot on the sides of the map, especially here, which is right there with the corner of the, I say marina, it's not really a marina, but we're going down to the sort of beach here as enemy tanks are spotted, Tiger 1 and Tiger 131. And there's the enemy Tiger 1, driven by a very good player, rocking backwards and forwards, and that enables me to bounce a shot from the Tiger, but then I stay still to aim and 340 into my cupola, whereas I'm not doing the same amount back to him. And then my next shot gets a bit unlucky, goes into his turret, which is quite strong these days, and I've started cheesing with my gun to try and block any return fire into my cupola. Next shot does go into him, even though it was barely aimed, and this rocking backwards and forwards can actually be quite advantageous with the Tiger P. I mean, sure, the tank is not on par with the Tiger 1, but all this movement enabled me to pretty much outplay that Tiger 1. I mean, you can see that his WN8 is in the green. He is not a bad player. But the way I was playing, and I guess the way that his gun was acting, he was probably cursing the accuracy of his 88mm. Yeah, it didn't go too well for him, and suddenly he's not got a lot of health left. Maybe 2 shots from my gun, and he's not feeling so confident in showing his tank anymore. Meanwhile, the Tiger 131 is not able to be seen, and with no targets... Oh, well, the Tiger 1 has popped up again. He takes another shot from me, and another one at me. Doesn't work out for him. I stay still again. Oh, critical damage only on my part, miss on his part, and then he gets lucky and hits my cupola again for a slight low roll. But now he is truly in a bad state. He cannot take any more damage from anyone. He takes another port shot at me whilst I'm moving up to try and take advantage of his low hit points. As more friendly tanks, I unfortunately hit the friendly there whilst shooting on the move. And pay attention to our Nashorn here as the Tiger 1 gets taken out by the M6. The Nashorn decides that he's had enough of being a sniper, and he's going to sit on the Tiger 131, loses a bunch of his hit points, and then he starts pinging me help, because that was really a very great move, wasn't it? And because he can't move, he's quickly going to die. In fact, he's just gone. Yeah, wasn't very smart, was it? With the majority of the enemy team's better players gone, well, the teams are still pretty balanced in terms of kills. It's now 5-5, but this match is going our way more than it is theirs. Though that certainly doesn't help. Armor not hit on a T-43. Sure. I just hate when the shell goes just low enough to only hit the tracks, and that's it. At least it wasn't absorbed by the tracks, but I guess maybe it might have been. I really do hate when that happens. You've got this 88mm gun that flings shells at like 1,000 meters per second, and they don't do anything. Take a hit from the IS. He's using a 100mm gun, so could have hurt a bit more. As I do finally get a hit on the T-43, who then tracks me, and I'm not willing to sit around. I want to take out one of these tanks. AMX-12T kills the IS, and the T-34-85M finishes off the T-43. So that's a bit of a wasted repair kit, but still moving up. Enemy team on its last legs, though the kills are still fairly even, 10-7. So they have been giving as good as they've been receiving. Enemy T-25/2, I think he knew I was coming. And there's a Cromwell. Yeah. Full health Cromwell, not using his tank to the best of his abilities, but on this map, not easy to. I get another parting shot off before he gets behind the cover of the hill, but he dies anyway to the M6. Another kill by that guy. He didn't do too badly in this game. More tanks, not able to shoot at them. That T-25/2 is tempting, but then the RT pops up, gets a shell into me, doesn't do a huge amount of... Actually, it does do a fair amount of damage. 200 damage, not terrible. And I tunnel vision a bit and don't realise that the T-25 is right behind me, but M6 takes him out again. Look, he was chasing after me. M44 finished off. And that's pretty much my contribution done in this game. The Hellcat, or Jackson, one of the two, it's yeah, just a bit too far away. It's up a hill for me. And, of course, as I said, this tank just a bit too slow up hills to get anywhere too quickly. And that's the game. So there we are, first class mastery, first mark of excellence, and just shy of 2,500 damage, which, you know, that's not bad at tier 7. That's something you can be pretty proud of at this tier, where most of the guns don't do a huge amount of damage. I may have only picked up a single kill, but I got almost 1,100 base experience, which is, well, 1,085. That is 3 XP shy of 200 more experience than the next best player on my team, which was the M6. Yeah, he didn't do too badly, but compared to my game, it was not very good. And here's that ace tanker you ordered. And it's on Paris, and we're top tier. And that enemy team is not looking particularly well skilled. I mean, they have an EOC AMX, which is driven by a pretty good player, and the Hellcat is also driven by a pretty good player. But the vehicles that tend to count in my battle, they're being driven by below average players. That doesn't mean I should underestimate them, though. A below average player can still be a force to be reckoned with. Sometimes they can just be in god mode whenever you least expect. But I'm still going to do my best here. With this 200mm of frontal hull armor, I am the most heavily armored heavy tank we have, really. And it's my job to go to the front. And we get a rude awakening in the form of the Hellcat, who misses, but I get a shot on him on the move. Yeah, that's a really odd position for a Hellcat. And then enemy Caro P-88 shows up. From what I've heard, not a great tank, but in that position, it's kind of irritating to deal with. And that player, not terrible, actually. He does poke out whenever I'm on reload. But yeah, with his tank currently hidden behind that mound of dirt, that's an irritating target. Irritating enemy to deal with. And he's holding me up here, but shows a bit too much of his lower plate, and his return shot bounces off. And that 240 damage tells me that he's using the 88mm gun. So we are fairly equally matched here. I want to push a bit further around the corner as the Caro's showing a bit of his turret and I managed to get another shot into him, so that's not smart on his part, but guess he didn't know the limits of that mound, and VK3001H takes a shot from me as well. Caro actually manages to hit my cupola as the 3001H is dealt with. And now we have a slightly better idea of what's out there. We've lost 2 tanks now to the enemy team's 1. Just got a bit too slow on the trigger finger, as the Caro now starting to take some fire from a very adventurous, very brave stock KV-1S, using, I'm pretty sure that is the stock 76mm gun, which is not a great gun. Tell him to fall back as he's already taken a pounding, and he was getting in the way. Unfortunately, only track the Caro as he tries to retreat behind his dirt there. He used his repair kit, and I hoped I could track him again, but it didn't, as P-43 getting a little bit adventurous. Gets a bit too slidey. Bounce off the Caro next. Not ideal. P-43 did try to take some shots, but it got a bit too much onto the dirt. As he comes round, takes a pot shot. Bounce! 2 shells. The 75 from the P-43 is understandable with the 88mm from the Caro as he comes out and finally loses his track, and that's his death throws there. That's his final mistake of this game, and he's gone. So the Caro now out of the picture, and that is the signal for me to start pushing. This P-43 in his panic drives up onto the it's not really a cliff, is it? But yeah, flips himself in front of me in his his panic. once again, a fairly even game, but now that most of the good players are gone, including the Hellcat, we are now able to push our way from the south. The KV-1 is gone. We're about to run into the WZ-131 GFT, the fake tank. There he is. He's completely oblivious to me until he starts taking shots. Versus takes another shot from me and, well, someone else. And there we go, finished him off. And now this game is in our favour. 3 enemy tanks remaining, including that Panther, and I do get a little bit greedy here. I don't want to get spotted by the Panther, but at the same time I do want to kill him. So I've perhaps hugged the inside, the left side houses here, and unfortunately the accuracy of this gun still not great when fully aimed. Missed the Panther, and the Panther gets taken out. And I still got spotted, so that's not great. The enemy team still has a fairly dangerous tank in the form of the Cheeto SP, tank destroyer rather, but, well, I've loaded the gold now, so even if he does show himself, I'll be well enough equipped to deal with him. And there he is, Cheeto, reversing, gold into the side is always going to go through. And, well, the fact that he took the damage first means that it's his battle to lose. Another shot into the lower plate, just making sure with the gold rounds, really. And the Cheeto is not about to die just yet. One more shot. He gets one shot into me, but it's not well aimed. Complete panic shot. Round of desperation. And he's gone. Loading the standard rounds now, because that's all I need now. The only proper enemy tank left, as I take a shot from the GW Panther, the only proper enemy tank left is the AC-4 Sentinel. Experimental. One shot. And then he just stops. I guess he was trying to take another shot at me. But he's gone. That's 6 kills now, and unfortunately I'm not going to get the arty. But it's one hell of a game for me. That is really a job well done from me. With 3,434 damage achieved. And a Top Gun, and the High Caliber, and the Ace Tanker. Sadly, didn't get a steel wall out of that battle, but not too upset with the result I did get. I mean, after all, Ace Tanker, Top Gun, High Caliber, not a bad game at all. Especially when you take into consideration the base experience that I got. 1,500 exactly. Completely trouncing the second best player on the team, who didn't do too badly for a tier 6, but the fact that I was there in the Tiger P, doing almost 3,500 damage in a tier 7 maximum game. I think you'll have to agree with me that that is one hell of a game, even if it was, well, a bit of a cakewalk with an enemy team like that. Still, not a game you can be disappointed with. 3,500 damage in a tier 7 tank. That is a good game. Hence the, hence the Ace Tanker. So there we are, the tier 7 German heavy tank Tiger P in 2023. It can still work. It's not as good as the Tiger 1, but if you know what you're doing, you can make this thing raw. Thank you for watching, everyone, and until next time, have a good one, and good night.